any B2B SaaS company, like you really want them to take a demo. You'd see them click around and maybe they take a tour, but then they disappear. And they would always pop back up in some society. Maybe it's the marketing society or sales society. And they'd be like, hey, does anyone like this tool? Or has anyone solved this problem? But that wasn't the biggest unlock. The bigger unlock is we allow your customers to control their calendar. So I'm sure we've all been asked for references before, or we've signed a contract saying, hey, we'll be a reference for you if you give me a discount.
I know people are very important to the growth of a company. So what are your hiring tips?
I think that transparency with people that have trusted you and come to work for you is important.
There's always a misalignment between sales and marketing teams. Have you experienced this and how do you combat that one?
Friction's okay, especially with marketing and sales. That's typically fine.
If you could go back in time to any point and give yourself one bit of advice, what would that be?
I think it'd be...
Welcome everyone to another episode of SaaS Stories. Today I'm joined by Braydan Young, all the way from California, co-founder and CEO of SlashExperts. Welcome, Braydan.
Yeah, all the way across the ocean, right? I mean, that's a direct flight though. So it's simple. So it feels close.
It's a very long flight though.
It's a very long flight. Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind taking it just to visit California though. Beautiful place.
Yeah. It's at least a 3 to 4 movie and 8-hour nap flight. It's like, yeah, it's a long one.
I know. Let's not count the hours. Let's break it down by how many movies we can watch.
Yes,
I love that.
Exactly.
Now, this is really exciting. I'm really happy to be talking to you today because on this podcast previously, we always talk about growth. And I've had people talk to me about founder-led growth, sales-led growth, marketing-led growth. Today, we're going to talk about buyer-led growth. And I feel like you've pioneered this buyer-led growth model that you have at SlashExperts. So curious to learn your story. How did SlashExperts come about and what is this buyer-led growth model?
I'll kind of tell a story too. So I've always been some form of a founder. At least this is my third company. So I, for some reason, like the early pain of startups. I was in sales before that and loved sales. This made sense to me. And then I went from that to starting a company called Sendoso. And Sendoso was a gifting company. So we send gifts around the world. We have warehouses everywhere where we do a bunch of sending. We worked with marketing teams. And it was a really great company. We grew that to 700 plus people, a ton of revenue, which was awesome, raised a good amount of money. But then the biggest challenge that we had there was we would see a ton of prospects come in. Like any B2B SaaS company, like you really want them to take a demo. It's like, hey, take a demo. And like you'd see them click around and maybe they take a tour, but then they disappear. And they would always pop back up in some society. Maybe it's the marketing society or sales society. And they'd be like, hey, does anyone like this tool, or has anyone solved this problem? So there'd be all these back channels happening and they're asking their peers like, hey, like, how have you solved this problem? Or have you used this tool? And we're like, we should figure out a way to almost encourage a back channel or a peer-to-peer conversation directly from our main page. And that was what we were trying to solve at Sendoso. And we built the system called SlashExperts. So if you go to a page like sendoso.com/experts, there's a big directory of people that are there who are customers of the product, who are willing to have a conversation with a prospect. So your very first step in the sales process, rather than doing research on your own, reading reviews you don't trust, reading case studies that are all over the place, you can have a conversation with a user who can be honest, who can say exactly why they bought it, what problem they're helping solve. And it was just easier and simple. And that's what we built and are kind of launching out to the world. We're 6 months in, and it's been kind of cool to see who's adopted it. Some companies have gone even more aggressive. We're on their main page, they'll add a big button. It's just like talk with a customer. And you press that and there's a pop-up and a bunch of people are there that you can book a time with instantly and have a conversation with. So it's been fun. It's amazing how fast 6 months go.
I don't think I've ever heard of this call to action in my 20 years in marketing, which I'm a bit ashamed to say. Talk to customer. I mean, there's case studies, there's testimonials, but I guess the idea of asking your customers to be available to your prospects, I guess people are scared to ask for that. So what was your strategy? How did you get your customers to be such great advocates and dedicate this amount of time?
Yeah, I mean, like talk with the customer. It is a new direction because usually you're doing research on your own. The phrase like 80% of the buying signal or the buying's already done before they hop on a demo. Like,
oh God, I thought it was 70. Has it moved up to 80 now? No, it's probably moved up.
like the goal there is just to make it easier for people rather than reading reviews that are written by who knows who. So we're trying to make that connection. So how and why do customers do it? So the first one is there's a payment to them. So a thank you. It could be an e-gift.
Ah.
It could be a charity type thing. Charity's big. It could be a physical gift. It's all automated to say thanks. But that wasn't the biggest unlock. The bigger unlock is we allow your customers to control their calendar. So I'm sure we've all been asked for references before, or we've signed a contract saying, hey, I'll be a reference for you if you give me a discount. And so I'm sure we've all done things like that. Then when you actually get asked for a reference, you're like, oh, it's kind of a pain in the ass. So they're like, hey,
Yeah.
like meet this person. And then you got to book a time and then you have to find a time. So this adds like a job to your day for something you're not being paid to do. So by having and giving calendar control to these customers, they were like, yeah, I'll do it because here's my open calendar. I'll assign one time a month or a week where I'm open for a reference. It might be even less, it could be one time a quarter. And that was the big unlock where customers were like, yes, I'll sign up for it because that way you're not going to burn me out. And that's been kind of cool to see folks sign up because of the calendar control.
It's a pretty great idea. I love it.
It's cool. It's a different way to do it. There's been a lot of demos of explaining like, hey, like we're taking the reference from the end of the sales cycle to the beginning. So totally
Yeah.
flipping it.
I mean, why not? That take a demo button, we all know that doesn't work. So why not
Yeah.
try something different and exciting? You're right. The trust factor, I think, with B2B consumers has completely diminished. I recently dived into that research and I went down the rabbit hole of like the Edelman Trust Barometer, and there was so much research in there about B2B consumers just really losing trust in companies and brands, and the millennials and the Generation Z specifically, that it grew for those types of demographics. And we all know they're now in decision-making roles as well as influencer roles. So trust is a big factor, and I think that's definitely one way to gain trust. What else have you found works other than talking to customer? And also, what type of research could they be doing outside of talking to customers, specifically if it's like a once a month opportunity to do that, and that could be far away. What can you do
Yeah.
in between that journey?
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point that I think that trust in reading reviews and trust in going to a lot of the sites that are out there and being like, do I like this company has 3,000 reviews? Like, should I trust any of them or are they all like, how old are these reviews? And so I just don't think that works as well as it used to. I think people really want to know use cases and know if it actually
Hmm.
worked. And then when you jump on a call with a sales rep, like there's amazing sales reps that are out there, but there's also some that they have a quota attached to them and they want to sell you a deal. And so sometimes that's not the best way to learn and buy a product. I also think with PLG motion, like the free 14-day trial or 30-day trial, I think those are great methods for building pipeline. But there still needs to be a conversation at some point with a human who can be like, is this actually a fit for you? Now, I know every founder argues that, well, I don't know if that's true. Like, look at AWS. So there's always anomalies. There's always the cursors and the AWSs that have grown incredibly fast without any sort of human sales folks, which I think sure exists. But most new companies need to have some human somewhere have a conversation, especially like even land and expand deals. So the other things you can do if like maybe the customer conversation doesn't work, I think by looking at the communities where your ICP lives and seeing, what questions are they asking, maybe looking at your demos and having conversations with your customers too and recording those calls and dropping them into like a chat GPT, and maybe the content, the way you move it out there doesn't make sense. Maybe it's a bit off. AI is wonderful for helping with that. I love just doing small webinars with prospects, like something that's just set on a weekly basis, where it's like, hey, I go over the product and you can show up and I'll just walk through a demo and answer questions. You're not selling. You're more just like, hey, like, here's what it is. Here's the problem we're solving. Like, if you have a problem like this, talk about it. I think that's a really good method. And then I always think I think conferences are coming back. Like, I think conferences are, since COVID, they've already been back, but I think it's going to get even bigger. I think people are hungry for face-to-face conversations.
I think so too. I think there's so much to unpack in what you just said, because I heard human, AI, conferences, webinars, and I don't
Yes,
know which
throw it all at you.
direction to go. I have so
Yeah,
many
yeah.
questions. I love that you said humans, because everyone's kind of thinking, how do I use less humans and more AI? And I don't know if I agree with that necessarily. I do think AI is fantastic and it does increase productivity. But I agree with you. I think there does need to be a human in there somewhere that's still connecting with prospects and with customers.
Especially if your product's expensive. Like, I think if you have
Yes.
a product that costs more than, let's say $20,000, like there needs to be a conversation at some point with the human there. Or if it's lower than that, I'd still think you can have a good opportunity for a land and expand deal.
No, absolutely. I think the human is what will bring the trust factor back because, there's been websites that I've gone on and they're quite big companies. I can see they've been established, they've been running for a while, but there's no way to connect to a human. There's a chat bot, which I know is a robot. And then, everything else
Yeah.
is like a knowledge base. And I'm like, where's the human? I still
Mhm.
want to talk to someone. I think 20% of the buyer journey in a way, isn't it?
When you do have a book a demo button like on your site, I think that you're giving your information and then you're waiting to hear and then you're waiting to book a phone call. That's such an old, like all of us are so used to instant things. And like book a
Yeah.
demo like takes 3 days. I think that the book a demo button will change where it's maybe talk to a person right away. I think that you can put experts in there where maybe there's an expert who's a customer who can have a conversation immediately. I think book a demo doesn't go away entirely. I think enterprise that works well, but I think your customer can help you navigate and close a deal, which is
Yeah. I love the idea of talk to a customer or talk to our product team or, engineering department, not the
right.
salesperson just yet, because you already know I'm not going to get sold to. I'm going to get my like real questions answered and I can trust these people.
There was like the companies that like they're really fast growth, they'd start to like DQ accounts that come in. You might get an email, you're like, hey, I love a demo, and they send an email back. It's like, well, if you're not willing to spend more than X, or if you have an approved budget more than X, we shouldn't even talk. Like
Yeah.
that's crazy. There's companies that do that. I've always found that to be crazy because you don't know if this company is reaching out to have a conversation with you is somebody who might grow really quick. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, I've always found those directions to be wild.
I have heard of those as well. It's
Yeah.
a bit mean,
Yeah,
but
like, oh, sorry, you're not a fit. You're not looking to spend enough money.
I don't get out of bed for less than 10K.
Yeah, right.
Coming back to webinars, I'm excited to ask you about this because I'm actually planning on running one in late September. I've not done one in a while. So, what format do you find works well? Do you interact with your audience? I know the slide deck puts people to sleep, but I mean, any tips you have for me?
I love webinars that actually dive into like the software that they're talking about. I think decks are fine if it's used at the beginning and at the end and it's quick. I don't think anyone cares about the vision of the company. And I mean that in like the nice way, but like talking about like here's who backs us, and here's the vision. It's like I don't show me the problem you're solving and the thesis you have and show me how it works. Interacting with customers is interesting because like typically if you do a webinar, let's say 100 people sign up, like you might have like 5 actually there and like then maybe the other 95 watch it later. So when you
Yeah.
interact with customers a bit too much, I think that that might cause problems. But like I do like the idea of having customers speak on a webinar. I think that that's
Yeah.
awesome. I also like the idea of like if you are at a conference, booth you have at a conference, you have a customer with you. So I think like that's a better use case than, or that this is a new use case we should use a ton where customers are just leveraged more.
Good tips. Thank you.
Yeah, make sure to thank them though, send them something. Say
Oh, for
thanks.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure. There has to be a gift of some sort.
Yeah.
Let's go back to early challenges, scaling SlashExperts, and even the companies you founded before that. What were some of the biggest challenges? You mentioned that you had, was it 700?
700 in Sendoso, there's a lot of
Ooh.
us.
Take me through that because I know people are very important to the growth of a company. So, what are your hiring tips? What do you look for in the early days? What kind of personalities, culture, all of it?
Yeah, this is a quick side note. It's funny because we're hiring right now for sales and CX. And at some point I got old where all my friends are now all like VPs of sales. And like I need to hire a salesperson. And I'm like, when did this happen? I gotta like, when did we all, and so I have to go out and find people that are, younger to, which is interesting to be like more entry level sales. Yeah, I mean like scaling's hard. You have days and weeks and hours that are great and hours
Mm.
that are bad. I wouldn't even go by the week or the day. I'd probably go by the hour. Hiring's a tough one. You need to make sure you're aligned with your co-founders or your team to be like, where are we going to scale? Is it remote? Is it all in one place? You need to decide what you're going to look for in a candidate. And there's going to be arguments there. And this is early. Once you kind of like establish a department, there's 1 or 2 people there that are great, then they can kind of run their own team. You need to trust your people. Micromanaging will only kill you. And so I think it's
Oh,
important to like let those people go and grow their own teams for sure. And also have their own budgets. I think the way that I managed early of the bigger company, the 700 one, was every department had their marching orders and we had shared OKRs, but everyone had their own OKRs. And so it's important to do that with growth because you can't stay on top of all of it. Trying to think
And
of like
so,
other early learnings was like know your values, know your mission, know like have all that stuff like written
mm,
down and see how it lines up with when you're doing hiring for sure.
yeah. Do you find hire slow and fire fast? Do you believe in that principle?
I do right now. I think that like the earlier the company, the earlier I believe in that. If you find somebody and they get to the interview process, they're great and they don't work the first week, then like people are very aware when it's not working. And so like
Yeah.
unless you think that something's going to turn around, you might as well be like, "Hey, this didn't work. Like let me make intros for you to go find your next job." I think that transparency with people that have trusted you and come to work for you is important. And if you're both feeling that it's not working early, then yeah, like be like, let's go find you something else because right here is not it. And I think
Hmm.
most founders know other founders who are hiring. And so it's very easy to make intros. If you find this person just isn't someone you want to make intros for, then yeah, for sure
Yeah.
get rid of them because it only takes one bad person in the beginning to really cause a major distraction. And you don't want that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What are maybe some key alerts that you get from people where you know, oh, this is not going to work?
I think that like you can kind of tell when so one everyone's back channeled, which is funny because it's we're selling a product that helps back channel software. And when you're hiring candidates, it's always good to back channel them to like their previous bosses and friends and be like, hey, like, how were they? You can typically, if you're back channeling somebody, and I recommend doing that for the first whenever I'm involved in a hiring process, I typically would go on LinkedIn and see if we know anybody that I know well that I can ask that question to. Like, hey, like, were they great? How was it? Like, you need to be careful not to make sure it doesn't get back to them. But that is important. And I think if everything looks good and someone comes in and like they're like an asshole, and you can kind of tell right away, then like get rid of it. Like that's not fun. It's just like at the end of the day, most of the softwares that we're selling and building are not curing cancer. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind. Like to when you're building something, if someone's just taking it too seriously and just too intense, you need to tell them to calm down. And if they can't do that, then they're usually probably not the right person.
Yeah. I've had
Yeah.
that experience before where we've hired someone and he just wasn't the nicest person to the staff. So one question we've
Let's
started
see ya.
asking now, how did they treat, those that were in lower positions than them? Because I think that's crucial. Like if you hire someone in a leadership role specifically, you want them to come in, be nice and train the rest of the team as well, rather than be mean to them.
This is a very un-HR comment, but I think it's important to have is you need to do like the beer test with somebody to like go and have a drink with them and just see like how they are. Like after one drink is important. Like not go out and have a bunch, but have one and just see like if they I don't know. I always think, especially in the early days, because you're gonna spend a lot of time with these people.
Yeah.
Un-HR comment for all your HR listeners. They're like, oh no. Yeah, that's important to
Like,
do.
you're not allowed to drink.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
That's a really good point.
I mean, it doesn't that
Okay.
go have coffee and see how they are after three very strong cups of coffee. If they're
Yeah.
jittery too much. So
I do wonder if 1 week is enough to get those red flags though, and just kind of go, oh, there's
yeah,
like,
not always. I think that's why it's important to have like the reference conversations and like not just the references they give you, but to find people that maybe you're both connected to.
aside from hiring mistakes, which I know everyone's made, in your experience, what are some of the common mistakes that you see early stage SaaS companies make, or even more evolved scale ups as well?
I think a big one is when you bring on a customer, it's important that, especially your first 20, 30 customers are incredibly important. So to keep them happy, to keep having conversations with them, to learn how they're using your product, learn what they wish you had, what they wish you don't had. Like you need to have conversations constantly with those folks. It's very important. If you're raising money, who you raise money from is very important to see if are they helpful, are they not helpful, are they the ones who write you a check and say see you in 6 years. I
Yeah.
think like it's important to know like how you want to raise money for sure. The other one is like what internal tools, like what kind of tools you want to have to keep everyone aligned. So if you are a remote company, there's a lot of great tools out there. Like you need to figure out which ones you want to use to keep things structured.
Hmm.
How you're going to keep your co-founders and your higher level executives in line. Like, are you going to do OKRs? Are you going to do like a North Star metric? And like what metrics are you tracking across the company are important. Also, your investors need that data too. So I think it helps if you do both. Like those are very important things. To share a quarterly goal, like every quarter, where the company is moving towards a goal, not just for go to market, but also for CX, also for engineering, also for product. Everyone has a goal that they're trying to accomplish, and everyone knows what the goal is of that department. And so that's an important thing to have across the company because it keeps everyone just focused on that North Star metric.
Yeah,
Those are like
absolutely.
those are like little things, but you'll lose a lot of that. I think that like if you have like cool perks internally, like we had this perk where we called it a vacation bonus, where if you went on vacation internally at Sendoso, we gave you $500 that you could use on like drink. The original concept came from when my co-founder went on vacation. We were like two people. I Venmoed him like $60, and I was like, "Hey, I have drinks at the airport on me," and we called it a vacation bonus. And so we scaled that for a very long time, like 10 years at Sendoso, where everyone got $500 on vacation,
Yeah.
which is great. So like know what things scale, know what things, generate cool internal communication. So I don't know, like know that stuff early on too.
Yeah, like know what your people are motivated by because it's not always more money or, like those vacation bonuses. I think that makes
Yeah.
people feel kind of special in a way.
Yeah, right. And like to get it, you had to post a picture of your vacation. So that was
Ah,
that was how you got it. And so we
yeah.
basically we all like lived through you. If you went to like cool places, you had to post a photo.
Yeah. Like on your social channels or just
Yeah, like in
internally?
Slack. There was like a
Yeah.
vacation bonus Slack channel. So you'd like when you got back, you had to post a picture of, you
Yeah.
went.
That's such a good team building exercise, isn't it? Because, they
Yeah.
post a vacation, everyone just talks about it for a while. It does bring the team closer together, which is really important.
To not talk about something other than work. Like,
Yeah,
but you're talking about vacation.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of building teams and bringing teams together and also the different goals within the teams, one thing I thought of is there's always a misalignment between sales and marketing teams. Have you experienced this and how do you combat that one?
I mean, like you have marketing who's trying to basically build a ton of pipeline, and
Hmm.
then that goes to sales to then close that pipeline. I think the most important number in an org is like new business, like new ARR, right? When you're looking at sales and marketing, take CX off the table for a second. So like sales and marketing both have their own numbers, pipeline and new revenue. And the problem is if marketing crushes that goal and sales doesn't hit, that's a problem. And so if sales crushes that goal and hits their number, but pipeline wasn't very good, I think, and like pipeline misses, like that's a problem too. So I think that like each department needs to have a specific number, but there also needs to be a shared, like, everyone is gold on the overall ARR number, especially with marketing and sales. And I think that's very important to have early on with a company, especially with your C-suite, so they just know what that number is and how they can all hit it and how they can all impact it.
I agree. I think it's really important that those two teams work together on a common goal. I've also found that like involving sales in a little bit of marketing also helps. So
Yeah.
things like, bringing them in and saying, who are the target accounts? Who are we going after? Therefore, everything we create for you will be with those accounts in mind so that you've got that, buyer enablement content that you can take to market with them.
Now, I think CX needs to share that number too. Like, so that
Yeah,
common, like, so because they can do upsells. So, because usually AMs like report to like a chief customer officer or something like that. And so it's important that all three, I think, align to one common ARR number. And like, of course, the CRO he has the biggest bonus attached to it, but the other two need as well. I think that helps.
100%. When we do workshops with new clients, we always try to get all those three departments in the workshop together. So like sales, marketing, CX. And it's so interesting because when you ask questions, you get different answers from all three. Because, this one's
Yep.
dealing with all the problems that the customers are having. This one is getting all the pushback. And then marketing is just like, oh, this has worked and that's worked.
Here's all the I sent you 50 deals you should have closed. I mean, there are times when CX they're mad at sales because sales oversold. And sales then gets mad at marketing because they brought in the wrong pipeline. They had to oversell in order to hit the number. And so I think like all three need to operate at the same level. And I think all three also need to be tied to churn too. I think churn needs to be a number that is important across the
Yeah.
company because if you're bringing and selling the wrong clients, even if CX can keep them kind of happy for a year, if they leave you at the end of the year, that wasn't really successful at all. And so I think that it's important to have those three departments aligned. But I think friction's okay, especially with marketing and sales. That's typically fine. Like sales should be a little bit pissed off at marketing because they haven't brought enough leads in, and marketing should
Yeah.
be a little pissed off at sales because they can't close anything. And so I think it's okay to have a little bit of that because I think you're pushing one another. but alignment's good for across those three departments.
Yeah, no, that's true. They hold each other accountable that way.
Yeah.
And, if there's no pushback, there's no growth. So they're too comfortable in a way. So that is good.
Right.
You mentioned the wrong customer there. And I just want to touch on that for a second because I think this is a very common mistakes a lot of businesses make, especially in the early days where they're just
For
desperate for
sure.
more customers and they'll take on anyone and everyone. And I always find you have to niche and you have to know exactly which customer is going to be crucial to your scaling and your growth. How do you tackle that at SlashExpert?
Yeah, I mean, like we've for sure brought on the wrong customer. Every company I've done, especially in the early days, because you assign yourself targets and you think you know your ICP, but it might not be who you're selling to. And so it's important to be aligned with your CX team who's ever onboarding them to say where you missed it. Because like if someone comes in, they're onboarding and they find multiple problems, or maybe you oversold something, or maybe an integration you thought was done wasn't done yet. We have a weekly CX meeting where we cover now we only have like 40 accounts. So we cover all 40 accounts to where they are and what their metrics are, what their score, like NPS scores are. So it's important to go through that because we're also learning who we should sell to. And so I think that's incredibly important in the early days to know exactly who your ICP is. You're going to make errors, which is fine. And like if you make an error, then like let them out of their contract. You're like, hey, you weren't a fit. And like that's okay. Like you
Yeah.
typically want to find the folks who are going to grow with you and that are happy and that you can make experts.
What are some of the key, I suppose, things that you see that make you think, like the measurement of how do you know this is the right customer? What are the
The right
metrics that you're looking at? The right fit?
I think onboarding is so if you take SaaS, like someone closes and then it's like, let's onboard. And so onboarding
Mm,
happens and like how engaged are they is like a very easy one. Like, are they like, hey, like the
yeah.
next couple of days, let's make this happen? Is it one person? Or they're like, hey, these are the multiple teams we want to get aligned so we can install this in multiple places? Cool. So then you go through that and then they're onboarded and then usage. Like, are they logging in? Are they using it? Are they not using it? Like, are they asking questions? Have they had bugs? Like, how is that gone? And like to monitor that is going to be incredibly important the first couple of months. You might find that somebody comes in, they sign a contract, they onboard a couple weeks later. That's bad. And then they finally get
Yeah.
in there, and then like they've kind of used it. You can see how many times they've logged in. Like maybe they bought a bunch of users and they've only used one out of the 10 users. Like those are all signs that that someone's going to leave you. And like it's a hard convo to have with your sales team to be like, hey, this account you sold is not onboarding correctly. And then maybe you re-engage that salesperson. A lot of the time across companies, sales has already been paid on the deal. And so I think sales is like, no, thanks. Like I sold the deal. It's your problem. So I think
Yeah.
it's important to get that salesperson involved again because like you don't want them to churn and you don't want there to be clawback for the salesperson. So I think you can align commission plans there a bit. And I think you can have some cool plays to try to get them moving. And then you figure out where if they don't ever re-engage what happened. And there's excuses where maybe people were laid off, but like a lot of the time it's because they never should have bought the tool in the first place.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. We talked about AI, or we touched on AI earlier. I want to come back to that and find out what are some cool ways you're using it? What are your thoughts on it? What excites you about the future as well of AI?
Yeah, there's so much of it, right? I think there's a new tool every 2 days.
Yeah.
I think for us, like a lot of the phone conversations between a customer and a prospect gets recorded. Those recordings, it's first party data. We use an AI to evaluate those phone calls and we give the data back to the company. And it's gold because you have a prospect and a customer talking about your product and you're not on the phone. And so like it's such good content that you can use for testimonials, for case studies, for all that fun stuff. So we do a ton of that in our system. We also like help actually connect an expert. So you might go to a website and you're a CMO or some weird title and you like to talk to a customer, but you're not sure who. So we can actually recommend people there too. So that's all AI components, which is awesome. The data that we're collecting on these phone calls is going to be huge. Like that'll be a very interesting thing as we grow the company. That'll be our moat for sure.
Do you find that AI is replacing brains a little bit? I mean, just the way people are using it, I find it,
Like how to
and
write how to
I'm
write
guilty of
emails.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm right. I'm guilty of that too, or text messaging. I do a lot of like I'm not a very good speller. That's the best way to put it. And like all of a sudden, all
That
my
could work
emails,
for you actually, because
yeah,
now
like
people see spelling mistakes, they know that was written by a human and they love
right.
that.
Like when I get messages sometimes from like my co-founder, I'm like, I know you're using an AI to write this email. Like I'm well aware that something's plugged in here because this does not sound like you at all. So I think some of the authenticity is gone for sure.
I agree.
I don't know how that changes.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've got my business partner sometimes sending me research and I can see this was written by AI and I
Yeah.
almost don't want to read it. I'm like, I'm not reading this. Let's have a
Uh,
conversation about it instead.
Yeah. I was arguing with my co-founder today over like hiring in like San Francisco where I am or doing a hiring across the US. And he like cited 3 essays about like work at home versus like I'm like, I know for a fact this is not how you talk. And like don't cite references at me like you're a dictionary or not dictionary, but the internet drive me crazy.
I think it's going to be an interesting one. I think people don't trust it. They use a lot of it, but they don't trust
Yeah.
it. So I think when it comes to content, it'll be interesting to see how it evolves and what content they end up engaging with. I think video might still be good because I think AI still has quite a long way to come when it comes to video. So video, it's the real person, it's authentic, and podcast as well. It's something you want to listen to and watch. Whereas you see a blog or a guide or an ebook and you're like, this was
Yeah,
written
right.
by ChatGPT.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that's why conferences come back, or like I know they're already back, but
Yeah.
become even larger. I guess I should say. We'll see. I mean, we're going into conference season now. Like it's like HubSpot's big show and Dreamforce's big show. We'll see like what the attendance is like. See if they have.
No, I think here in Australia as well, especially post-COVID, I think everyone had, that digital fatigue and they're just desperate to get out at events, at conferences, meeting people, and it's exciting. I think the conferences are getting a little bit more fun as well. So yeah, I know
I think
HubSpot
so.
especially, they get celebrities at their ones.
Yeah, so does Salesforce. There's a bunch of them that come in. Like they always have like a show. Like
Yeah.
like Will I Am somebody. You're like okay. There's
Has nothing to do with SaaS.
Yeah, right. Like you're like or they get like celebrities to come and talk, which is funny. They're both in the same place. HubSpot's having their show in San Francisco, right in the shadow of the Salesforce Tower. So it's
Yeah, it's
nice little,
deliberate.
yeah, right. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. As a founder of multiple ventures, what's one belief that you hold now that has changed over the years?
I think that like how you manage people. When I first started, I thought that you had to be not connected to your computer, but you had to be in one place all the time, like with your team,
Mm,
and you had to put in the long hours and you had to work, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. And I think through the years, I've learned in startups that people work differently
yeah.
and to not manage that, like to manage for what the outcome needs to be. But I think that like when you try to manage someone's day to day, it doesn't work. And I think you need to manage like, hey, like here's your goal, like go crush it. And, like it took me a
Yeah.
long time to learn that. Because I thought like, remember my first job at a school at a university, I was like strapped to my desk and I was like, this is I can't go to the bathroom because my boss is going to see. And like now, like learning that like that guy didn't care. He was like, you have a goal, like you're an adult, go hit your goal. If you need help along the way, like I'm here. I think that was a big one that I learned. And I read a book called like Let My People Surf. It was written by like the Patagonia founder, like an old book,
Ah.
but like I read it early on in my career and I used to send it and I loved it just because it was all about like, hey, like we're building things that are meant for surfers and for climbers. And if the weather's great, go climb and do your work when you want to do your work. And I think Google figured that out a long time ago.
I love that because agree with it because we've now gotten into a habit with our employees. We say, look, are you a morning person or are you a night owl? In which case you can kind of pick your working hours if you want to, as long as they kind of fit with when the clients are awake
Yeah.
and when the rest of the team is awake. There's going to be a little bit of an overlap there, but if you want to start really early in the morning and then finish by 3 o'clock and then, go and be with your family, pick up your kids from school, whatever that may be, it does make them so much happier and so much more productive and committed to the company as well. And I do find that like tying someone to a desk from 9 to 5, you're not getting the best out of them anyways. I think any human could probably just give you 5 hours of real productivity per day.
Right.
And the rest of
Yeah.
the
I
time, they're like glazing over.
Yeah, I agree. I like the in-office culture, like a couple days a week. I think that's great. I think it's
Yeah.
important to see people face to face. If you're all local, I don't believe in spending 2 hours commuting, and so I think that, and so it might be you go in later and like you leave earlier. But whatever your driver is that keeps you grounded and happy is what you got to incorporate in your life.
Mm. But it's definitely a challenge I've had as well. In fact, I still feel guilty to this day if I don't put in the hours. And I just have to keep reminding myself, like creativity happens when you're not chained to a desk. So do go for a
Right.
walk, do take that time off, because I've never gotten my best ideas sitting at this desk. It's always been somewhere else doing something else.
Yeah, right. I totally agree with that. I think that has to happen in order to have any sort of creativity.
What are your thoughts on work-life balance? I know a lot of people have different opinions on the topic. I'm curious to hear yours.
I work best when like I'm fulfilled in my life. So I have a 4-year old. My wife's here too, and so like it's important for me to spend a lot of time with them because and when I'm fulfilled, their work's easier because I know I'm working to support them. So I think it's important to have both. I don't think you need to work 12, 18-hour days in order to have success. Now, early in my career, in my 20s, I did a lot of that. I think I could say work-life balance is important now because I worked in my 20s, 18 hours a day. So I think that it's kind of a two-sided sword there, if you will. Like work-life balance is important, yes, but I did put the time in order to be able to say that. So I think that's kind of a not a direct answer. So I think depending on where you are in your life is probably like how many hours you should be working. I think if you're coming out of college and you're new to let's say the tech world, you're going to work more than somebody who is maybe in their 40s. And like that's okay because I think that you're trying to learn, you have to put the time in. And then as you get older and as you have more success, that's able to open up more time for you to do other things, have a family. So that might not be the
Yeah.
answer that everyone wants to hear, but like that's
No,
kind
it's
of
so
like
true.
yeah. But for me, I need a balance. Like as I'm older too, I know my day now, like what things I need to do to work smarter because I used to not
Mm.
work smarter. So I've gotten better at that too.
It's so true. In your 20s, work hard, learn as much as you can. Once you've learned it in your 40s, work smart and have that balance because you do want to spend time with your kids
Yeah.
and your hobbies as well. And one thing I've also seen, because I'm at the same time in my life as you are in yours, I've got young kids, so there is a fine line and balance there. But I'm looking at, my co-founder whose kids are now adults, and he's gone back into those
Yeah.
working longer hours because he can and he enjoys it and he doesn't have a family that he needs to constantly be there for.
When I first graduated and then I met my wife out at a bar, hilarious. I remember like she was like, "What do you like?" We were
That's
talking for
where I
some
met
reason.
my husband.
Yeah, right. Like we were having a conversation around like what do we want to do with our careers, and we were like 23, and I was like, I want to be a consultant. And she's like, for who? I'm like a consultant for CEOs. And she was like, yeah, because the people who are CEOs are really wanting a 23-year-old's opinion on like how to do something. And it's funny, like I knew I needed to put the time in order to learn if I ever wanted to go there. And like so that was always my weird driver. And then I went and became a founder, which is interesting. But now I've been a CEO, so maybe someday I could end up as that consultant. Work
Yeah,
one day a week.
someday. That's the lie. Braydan, my last question for you, bit of a tradition on this podcast as our last question is if you could go back in time to any point and give yourself one bit of advice, what would that be?
I think it'd be cool to go back in time, like right when I was going into college and say like not to worry too much about the major that you're choosing. I remember stressing about that a ton, being like, do I want to go into business? Do I want to go into philosophy? Do I want to go and like, and I spent so much time thinking about that. At the end of the day, a lot of college is not education in the classroom, it's education outside of the classroom, and you learn how to navigate your time. You learn what excites you. You meet incredible people, and so like it's all about kind of that. The more of the education. So I would say not to stress about that when I was very young, high school to college would be a big one. And then I think probably the other one is when I was first starting Sendoso, a weird mindset or like thought you always have, and I still have it, is I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like I'm always waiting for like things to just fall apart. And like even
Yeah.
at Sendoso, we had like hundreds of employees and hundreds of customers. Always like it's gonna end any moment. Any moment they're gonna call and I want their money back. And like I'm at that now too, this new company. And it's weird that like I always thought that for 11 years at Sendoso that it was always going to implode. And so to not worry so much, because like you're just losing calories
Yeah.
over stressing about that. Were the two biggest ones for sure.
I keep thinking that about myself is when I am old and gray, I'm just going to look back on this part of my life and go, why did you worry so much? But
Yeah.
I think it's such a founder mentality. I'm lucky my co-founder has like this massive positivity. He's just positive about everything and anything, and everything's going to go right. And I'm just the negative one in the corner going, what if this goes wrong? And what if that goes wrong? But I feel like
For
it's a
sure.
good energy between the two, because sometimes things do go wrong and it's good to have a plan.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Or to just figure it out, to shoot from the hip, see how it goes.
Yeah, or as he likes to say, quoting Marie Furlow, is everything is figure outable.
I mean, that's a perfect partner to have for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed
Yeah,
that
thank you.
chat. And where can
Likewise.
anyone find you? Slash experts. What are
Yeah,
some other channels?
check out slashexperts.com. I am the only Braydan Young on all of LinkedIn. My name's spelling
Wow.
Braydan. So like my parents did a creative spelling, and so I'm the only one on there. So find me on LinkedIn and let's connect. Braydan Young on there too.
Thanks, Brayden.
Thank you.